Hello everybody, welcome to the video interviews at Sibos 2022 Europe. We are the Fintech Times here with Shilpa Bangera of Finastra. Shilpa, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Tyler. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. We're here on the first day of Sibos and very busy. Last time I was here was Money 2020, so it's really good to be back.
Yes.
Have you had a productive morning so far?
It has been great.
Yeah.
It's just it's interesting to see how quickly we've sort of rebounded after not seeing each other for almost 2 years. So I am absolutely loving it.
Oh, fantastic,
Yes.
fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we go ahead with any of our questions, we've got very exciting questions to ask you, Shilpa. But before we go ahead, would you just give our viewers an insight into who you are and what you do at Finastra?
Hi, I'm Shilpa from Finastra, and in my current role, I lead the platform, which is the fusionfabric.cloud, where in Finastra's own words, we are driving open innovation. And so it's a very interesting role as the Fintech and the industry seems to be moving towards transformation. My role is how do I really channel that innovation to our customers, but equally to the Fintech community.
Fantastic. Wow, we're all acquainted now. So we should probably go on to our first question. You mentioned you were working with your company's platform just there, and you sort of delved into a bit of what it did. But in terms of the demand of the industry, how is the platform adhering to that demand? And most importantly, what do the end benefits to the consumer actually look like?
Yes, I think if you look at overall how we are progressing in terms of and how the industry is progressing, customer is top of mind for everyone, right? How do we drive value to a customer? How do we help streamline the experience? How do we manage cost and all of that? So when we think about fusionfabric.cloud, that is really empowering our customers to be able to achieve and enable all of that for their clientele, and that's what we say in these days in fintech. Like every company is a fintech. The leading banks themselves call themselves technology companies and no longer banks. So I think at the end of the day, this ecosystem is all about driving that to our customers. How we do that at Finastra, since our inception of how we are driving this innovation, we have had over 300 APIs just over on our platform with about 200 fintechs that we partner with. So it's not only just delivering these services to our existing clients, but equally as we onboard new. So this in itself tells you that there is a huge demand in driving that innovation in collaboration with our fintech partners.
Well, that's really, really fantastic. And in your opening, when we did the short introduction, you mentioned the fact that it was an open platform, right? And I think from my perspective, I don't quite have the major insight that you will obviously hold. But from my perspective, I really see the industry sort of moving away from these very traditional, very rigid platforms. So in your opinion, how is an open platform, the use of an open platform, trumping the more traditional alternatives?
Yes, absolutely. When you look at the industry, now if you were to look at it, you have a lot of legacy that currently exists, right? And there is nothing. None of us are shy to admit that there is legacy within the large institutions that we are a part of, but equally the large institutions that we collaborate with. Now, with that legacy comes a cost. Right? The cost is either how do you operate within that legacy and how do you manage cost, right? And how much do you really invest in it? For you to completely innovate yourself to a scale of 100%, that is going to involve a subsequent amount of investment, right? And which is quite large. So the easier way to be able to subset that is how do you really drive that innovation through partnering, right, with others. And that's really what we call as being truly open, right, where you don't really have to build everything in-house. You don't really have to consume a lot of your own capital capital and investment into building that, but equally you can now look outside and see who really has best of class of what you're really looking for, and partner with them, right? So in terms of Fusion Fabric.cloud, we do exactly that. We are really the matchmaker in this case, where we actually find the right product with the right value add and solution, and we sort of combine that with what our clients are really looking forward, and that's truly open. And the way we do that is through open APIs, right? So if you have a developer, in your bank, and they want to really, or they can actually play around with the data, and they can build solution sets on top of that, right? So that's really where it helps facilitate that collaboration, as opposed to how it was done previously.
But how would an approach like that fit with like software accountability and transparency?
Yeah, we have. So when we look at these fintechs that we currently source on our platform, these are vetted, right? So we go through a third-party vetting process, but equally our own Finastra team actually ensures that we completely vetted on who they are, the source, and the data. So when we are talking to our customers, they have 100% assurance that the products and the solutions that they consume from us are vetted by a third party, but equally through the Finastra's own vetting system.
So they're all sort of the dodgy ones are sort of eliminated before they even reach your customers.
Right. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't necessarily call it dodgy because, but perhaps because we work in a pretty stringent ecosystem, we want to make sure that we're adhering to every laws, rules in a particular country, in a particular geography, so that we can serve the customers in that region. So we completely do all of that due diligence at our end.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. And you mentioned a bit in your answers about your use of open APIs, right? I think the number was 300.
300, yes.
That's right. That's
and
right.
it's and that's just number we have, but we're constantly exposing our own product APIs on our platform, and by doing so, our clients then have the flexibility to use them in the best way possible to serve their own customers and drive that value.
So onto my next question, is quite a hot topic here at Sibos this year, is open finance. It's seen an incredible rise in the industry recently, and I think from what we're seeing right now is a really sort of widespread awareness of the technology. But I'd love to hear from your perspective. What would you define open finance to be, and more importantly, how does it work?
So open finance is an extension of open banking. And if you were to ask me, a collaboration is a new innovation, if you just keep those things in mind, right? So open finance is really about driving that collaboration to innovate jointly to serve our customers' needs.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it really comes down to that, because as I mentioned in the start of my interview, customer need, or driving our products to serve that need, is front and center for every institution out there. Whether you're a bank, whether you are a fintech, whether you are you're an educator, whether you're a law firm, right? That is what is everyone's really striving for, as to how do I have that customer ecosystem and make sure that they are thriving in that ecosystem. And open finance really eliminates a lot of friction in that ecosystem, right? And that's really what we're driving at. So the more we collaborate, the better success it is, for us to sort of serve our customer needs in the most succinct way and make it more frictionless.
So when we, for example, saw the rise of contactless payments or digital wallets, people who weren't directly involved in the industry felt an immediate benefit from that, be it faster checkout experience, tokenized payments, maybe they were buying online and it became a lot easier, especially for example, in London where we're stationed. You can get on the tube and use your contactless and it's all seamless,
yes.
right? And I think that people like you and I who work within the industry, it's sort of very easy to become very comfortable with these terms: open finance, maybe open banking, software as a service, for example. But what, in your perspective, would you see to be the outcome of the rise in open finance to the end consumer that might not necessarily be directly involved in the industry?
Yes. So, I mentioned earlier, open finance is nothing but an evolution of open banking. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, we all are a part of that, and we're already experiencing it in varied degrees, right? Some of the examples that you mentioned about contactless payment, mm-hmm. it is nothing but an evolution of where we were and where we are going. So I certainly do think that there is going to be and one thing I also wanted to point out, that everything that we are building today is to service a customer need, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're building today something that is going to serve a customer's need, if you look at it, when you're actually posing the solutions to them, the propensity of them to consume that is also going to be higher. Mm. So the point to say that is that I think it's going to be very well recepted by the end consumer, but it's also going to be accelerated, where sometimes you may think that they don't need it, but once having that service will just makes it much more frictionless. What I also do think, as an immigrant myself, the whole aspect of open finance is also giving accessibility, and driving more around inclusion. When it comes to finance, you see a lot of work currently been done in open finance around SMB lending, and how do we really make that frictionless? The whole focus around folks who don't really have a bank account, and how do we enable them to be able to work through their finances. So I think there is the deeper sense of how do we really do good to society, and just not society in the lens of how we see it, but in all its spectrums. And I think there is that element of that to me is certainly very close to my heart, and in the way that we at Finastra are also driving that forward on financial inclusion.
Yeah, I think financial inclusion, of course, is something that everybody's so conscious of, these days, and I think it's a really good thing to push forward, because money isn't bordered by any language barriers or general understanding. I think it's anybody who makes any kind of transaction is going to need these services, right? You spoke about what you're doing today to meet the customer demands of today. They must be very changing and very dynamic. But I'm just wondering, what is the future of Finastra? What have you got on the table for the rest of the year into 2023? What's your plans?
Yes, I think you'll, one of the things, and I think the first and foremost, it's about driving that economic empowerment, right? Which I just mentioned,
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of focus around, financial inclusion, but at the same time, how do we collaborate to innovate? Right? I think that is how we work with our own partners, be it Fintechs, with our customers, current customers, future customers. So how do we collaborate more so that we can innovate? We can innovate at speed. We can innovate to delight our customers, and in doing so, create a better sort of version of financial services for today and beyond. And I think that's really what we're working on here at Finastra.
Fantastic. Yes. Well, I look forward to seeing everything that you're going to do. It's always it's always a pleasure to work with Finastra and see what you're doing.
Yes.
But thank you so much for joining me today. We're only on day one of Sibos, so anything could happen. But it's been a really, really fantastic time speaking with you, Shilpa, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of this spectacular event here.
Oh, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.